Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Excuse me if we're doing the computer camera again. I just did not have time to charge my actual camera again. And I'm actually re-recording this because I did actually record a news roundup version of this, but I figured just topic video wise, this seems more relevant in that field, I guess. I don't know. I just have what I have, so I'm just using my resources. So, because I usually like to do news roundups as audio logs, not like video wise. But we have what we have, so we're gonna do what we can do as we discuss the most recent development in this whole Netflix Warner Brothers merger. And I think that for now, this will probably be the last video that I do revolving around this topic until something else major happens. Because at this point, it is pretty much up to Warner Brothers and seeing what they do. But we talked about, of course, the impacts, about the deal, what could happen, in terms of theatrical release, what can happen with just the company, how it may evolve or devolve in the future. And now we have a very interesting development now with Paramount Pictures now coming in with a counter offer, essentially their hostile attempt at trying to gain that studio from Netflix in now a bid that is essentially 100 million or 100 billion, I must say, in value. And the reason why I'm also re-recording this video is because I also said something in the audio log regarding Netflix's deal, which I think I said $8 billion when it actually is $80 billion. So I just wanted to um, acknowledge my mistake and re-record. So Netflix's deal with Warner Brothers was around 80 billion. So now Paramount is putting up about 100 million, and their deal is for the entire company once again, whereas Netflix's deal is, just getting the streaming and studio businesses, whereas the other part of that, the global networks, their television divisions like news network, broadcast, stuff like that, that is becoming a separate company, at least right now. So so now comes the question of where will Warner Brothers go? Because this is still in flux, remember. So this is not a done deal. There's things that still need to be taken into account. And at the end of the day, I think when you put it all in perspective, when you look at where things are at right now, with Paramount and with Netflix, I think there's been some people who have been saying that Paramount might actually come up on top, and I mean, there's always a possibility for that. But I think that when you actually examine everything that's surrounding this deal, when it comes to just the deals as they stand and the outside sources that influence this deal, I think it's pretty apparent, at least to me, that Netflix will be the ones that will end up with Warner Brothers at the end of the day. Because there are three ways that this can go, three distinct ways that this can go. One of which I think is very dirty, very slimy, and it's possible. But there's three ways this goes about. First of which, as we mentioned up front, Netflix just gets Warner Brothers at the end of the day. I think that's a very likely outcome because um, you have to remember the economics that are behind this deal. And in that, you have to be able to go through the government, you have to be able to go through all the things that are going to take place. And if you've been following some news lately, uh, Donald Trump has apparently had some history with Paramount in the past, specifically their CBS network, I think, where I guess he's sued them in the past. He's not really happy when it comes to certain things there, but it may be that the CEO has relations with him. So it's a slippery slope when it comes to where Trump's stance might be when it comes to Paramount Pictures. And that does play a part um, because that will be an influencing factor when it comes to the economics, when it comes to getting the approval of this deal that is a part of it. Now, we also do know that Trump has also partaken in the movie business lately because of developments on Rush Hour 4, which Paramount was not going to do, right? Paramount was not, as far as I can tell, was not wanting to do Rush Hour 4, and then Trump steps in and does what he does. And that is more in the line of Trump helping out someone that benefited him. That was the director, Brett Ratner. So it wasn't, in fact, Paramount's decision. It was more Trump coming in and dictating that decision as far as I'm looking at it. Um, so it's not necessarily, again, that they have the strongest relations. I mean, CEO wise, we don't know. I mean, it's kind of ambiguous. There's been some set talk about them again, like a meeting in the White House and stuff like that. I don't know. But as far as I can tell, as terms of background goes, Trump has had some issues with them in the past. So with Netflix, as far as Trump has said so far, he seems to be okay with them. He said that there are things that he takes issue with, but that all falls in line with economics and having meetings and discussions. So Trump seems to be, in terms of just the scale of where he may in fact give the approval, Netflix seems like they would win over that approval than over Paramount. So at least as far as I can tell from that specific point, and that's why version one of this whole thing is Netflix getting Warner Brothers at the end of the day is probably more likely. Now the other two scenarios are again likely, but probably not. The other obviously being Paramount getting Warner Brothers, as we've laid out. There's issues between Trump and Paramount in the past with CBS. I believe, right? CBS is owned by Paramount. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that there's stuff like that in the past. Um, so because I think CBS is owned by Paramount, right? I could be wrong, um, but let's say Paramount gets Warner Brothers, right? Um, Paramount, they do have a larger deal that they are offering, and they are looking to get the entire company, which is really interesting. I've read that they apparently believe that the company is not utilizing their global networks divisions correctly, which is why apparently they want to get a hold of it or something like that. But regardless, at the end of the day, that is not going to be WB's concern. Either they split the company into two, or someone else is going to take on that division. So they're not going to be held accountable for that in the future. So regardless, it's going to be either liquidated or it's going to be owned by somebody else. So it's kind of a moot point at this point when it comes to Warner Brothers' handling of that division, because they're not going to have any responsibility on that front. Um, but I don't really know what they would benefit from anyway when it comes to those networks. I think it's what CNN or something like that they own. Um, but I don't know. Maybe there's a whole political underbelly to this that I'm not recognizing, which is a part of it. I mean, Trump has involved himself with Paramount in the past, so there's also some scares maybe that Paramount gaining Warner Brothers also gives the Trump administration or the White House as is a little bit more jurisdiction on certain decisions over there. With approvals on certain IPs or certain pitches. That is something that could be involved in this, especially because, as I illustrated, Trump involved himself with a major development like Rush Hour. So who's to say he doesn't extend that to other things that are happening within the company as well? That's possible. So those are the two outcomes. The two, obviously the two things that are up in the air is who is going to take Warner Brothers at the end of the day. Option three is where I think can get a little bit dirty. So let's say that Paramount ends up getting Warner Brothers, or sorry, yeah, Paramount ends up getting Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers ends up deciding they want to go Paramount because they have a larger deal. They could do that, right? But they could still also benefit from Netflix because Netflix has come out and they have said that they are willing to bring a breakup fee of at least $5 billion. So if Warner Brothers wants to be dirty, they can go with Paramount and still benefit from Netflix and have the value of which the deal is become a lot higher. So there's also that, you know. Um, and I think that'd be the dirty way of going about it. Um, and two of which, the two options of which obviously are to Paramount's benefit. Um, but I think that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, this all falls down to the government and it all falls down to approvals within it. It's hard to judge where Trump's stance is on Paramount, and that overall company. I would like to think that he is more. I would think he would be better, especially because of things that have transpired in the past politically. Um, so he may be okay with certain people, but to say that he's comfortable with the entire company, I don't know. Um, so because Warner Brothers will say what they'll say, right? They'll pick who they're going to pick, but ultimately it's up to the government at the end of the day to approve of that deal. And I think that Netflix, as far as just how they have gone about this deal, I think that they have shown both confidence, but also not as much concern. With Paramount, they have come out very aggressively. They have made multiple attempts. They've threatened at suing the company. These are all things that WB has to consider upon thinking about which deal they want to go with. Netflix has not shown any of that. Netflix has just shown their offer, and they have been very confident in that front. Whereas Paramount has been a bit hesitant. I mean, their deal has risen. They have the same value I've heard from their share value as they had with previous attempts. It was like $30 per share compared to Netflix, I think like $28 per share. So they are offering more generally, but what does the value of that mean compared to Netflix's deal? Is it better to just go with what Paramount is getting and then reap the benefit that Netflix is already offering? Or go with Netflix and just have what they're having there in terms of the relations that seem to be there already and the lack of aggression and the lack of tension that is with them. Because with Paramount, they've already laid out their cards saying that there's potential for suing, there's potential for this and that if they don't take up on their deal. So the ball's in their court, WB's, and they're going to make a decision. They've said that they're going to consider Paramount's deal for the next few days. So you can take that as you will. That could be them just looking at it and then maybe passing up on it, or they're legitimately reconsidering. We'll see. We'll see. I think personally, I think that just by either the company looks at it just from a financial standpoint. You can go with Paramount because they have the larger offerings, and again, you can be dirty and just benefit from Netflix at the same time if you choose to go with Paramount. But if you're looking at it from a stance of of uh, of collaboration and just cooperation, I think that Netflix seems to be more considering at that front, whereas where Paramount is just being more aggressive, and they are being very adamant on getting this company regardless of the outcome. So so I would go with Netflix. Yes, they're not offering the bigger deal, but I think that in terms of what they are offering generally when it comes to their relations, when it comes to their just how their business practice, they seem a little bit more understandable than how Paramount is conducting themselves and just how they're going about them handling themselves, threatening lawsuits and this and that. Like it just seems as though Netflix seems better on that front. I'm not saying how they're going to handle like Warner Brothers. That is different. I mean, Paramount has already offered putting out a certain amount of movies theatrically compared to Netflix, where they're being very ambiguous on that front. But there's a whole system that Paramount might bring into the fold. With Trump becoming involved potentially, dictating certain decisions. I would personally go with Netflix in this front. You know, I would gamble with Netflix than having to potentially have the the government become involved in the movie industry, or at least in this specific aspect, I would prefer the former than the latter. So, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what Warner Brothers ends up picking, and ultimately what their rationale behind that is. If they go with the money, essentially, which is very likely, they will probably end up going with Paramount because they have a bigger offering on that front. And like I said, they will benefit from Netflix regardless. So the value of the deal will end up becoming a lot bigger as a result. Or they can look at it more from, okay, who seems like a better business partner at the end of the day? Maybe then they might go with Netflix. So we'll see where their heads are at. But that's going to be probably in the next few weeks or so, maybe even next week. We'll see. But we'll see. But one thing also to consider also about this whole thing, Netflix will not have to deal with certain commissions in the White House. I think I read somewhere that I think it's the FTC. I think I forget what commission it is, but they don't. The Netflix wouldn't have to deal with them because they're only taking on the studio and streaming businesses. Whereas with Paramount, they will have to deal with people like the FTC because they are taking on the entire company, which includes the global networks divisions, which I believe fall in line with that with this with the economics behind it. So there's also that you have to consider. There's less that would have to be taken into account with Netflix, whereas with Paramount, there's would be a little bit more that would have to be dealt with. So there's another thing you have to consider. But we'll see. We'll see where things end up. But you guys, let me know. Do you guys feel like Warner Brothers is a better fit for Paramount, or do you guys feel like it's a better fit for Netflix? Let me know. Where do you guys feel like Warner Brothers is best suited to that? And we'll know in a few days' time, maybe in a week or so, where things line up. I personally think it's probably going to stay with Netflix. But you guys want to know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.